Welcome back to Bricks and Buckets, Season 3, Episode 17. Of course, I'm Nico.
And I'm Rob.
And that's all for today. I mean, hey, you know what? What is this saying? I know three's a crowd. Was it two's a party or
I
something?
believe it's quality over quantity, and we got some real quality in it, and it talks some basketball. So
That is facts. Now it's been a minute. We're just starting right on, like jumping right into it. One thing we never mentioned last time because right after I pressed upload, Rudy Gobert gets traded.
unbelievable. The timing is never ideal, it seems like.
And I don't know about you, but to go over that trade package, as if I mean, if you're listening, you've probably already seen this, but Malik Beasley, Patrick Beverly, Leandro Balmaro, Walker Kessler, who was literally drafted, I think, what 2 weeks before this,
Yep.
Jared Vanderbilt, and then four unprotected firsts, one pick swap. Rudy Gobert is not worth five picks.
No, I was going to say there's no chance that I think that the Jazz didn't win this trade. They are big winners in this trade, despite giving up Rudy Gobert, who's I feel like undisputedly a top 20, 25 player in the NBA, a potential defensive player of the year candidate every single year. Um, but what a haul. I mean, this is something that you'd expect for like a Kevin Durant type deal. His name has been in the news a lot. I think the Jazz won this trade despite the fact that it made the Timberwolves better for this season.
I said how I feel like this offseason, the value of a first round pick has just gone straight down. And I don't know if that's Gobert setting the market, but I think five first is ridiculous.
Five first is insane. I mean, unprotected as well. The Timberwolves project to be good now. I mean, for a decent amount of time between Karl Anthony Towns and Anthony Edwards and Rudy Gobert. That's a solid core right there.
Where do
So
they
it's not
finish?
the what's that?
Where do they finish? Like what's the seed?
I'm big on them. I think they're a top six seed. I really
Do
think that they are.
you think they reach top four?
I don't think they reach top four. Maybe even a hot take. I think the Pelicans have better chance of reaching top four than the
Pelicans
Timberwolves do.
Zion.
I don't know. I don't know if that's hot or not, but I've been big on the Pelicans ever since they acquired CJ McCollum. I think that he fits that roster really well. But I don't think they're a top four seed. I don't think that they're a serious contender to come out of the Western Conference. I think that they could go on a run in the playoffs. You know, they could make the Western Conference Finals. They could be like one of those Trailblazers teams from a couple of years back that gets carried by a couple of stars and makes the Western Conference Finals and loses to five to a better team. You know, I
Is it
could see
is it
that
a compliment to get compared to the Trailblazers?
from a couple of years ago. Yeah, they were a Western Conference Finals team. They were. I guess you could call them a Finals contender.
What do you think this team's floor is, and what do you think the ceiling is? Also, not including like we don't know what like injuries are going to play it at all, but
Right.
if
I
they're all
think the
healthy,
absolute floor is the playing tournament, and I'm not talking like the 10 either. I'm talking like the 7 or 8. This is a playoff team. This is one of the better rosters in the NBA. Especially when you look at strictly the starting five. I mean, D'Angelo Russell's still there. He's a quality point guard. He might not be, the
gets no
prime
love.
D'Angelo Russell that we saw with the Nets for that year, but he still gets you about 20 points per game. I believe last year he was around the 19 mark. He's a quality point guard in the NBA. This is a good starting five. The bench got a little depleted in that Gobert trade, but they rebuilt it nicely. Naz Reid's still there to back up their two starting centers now. I think the floor is the play-in tournament. The ceiling, I will go with the the absolute ceiling, maybe four max. I'd say five is a more realistic ceiling though.
I mean, we're talking about a Minnesota team that historically does not have a good playoff resume, especially
No,
recently. Um, if I mean, I just want to say it for fun because I mean, I love D'Angelo Russell. Anthony Edwards is slowly but surely making this his team over Carl Anthony Towns. Putting Gobert there and not having Cat to rely on for interior defense, I think is huge.
huge.
So I think on paper this team competes with the Suns. I know that I mean we know my Sun slander.
You're low on the Suns, yeah.
Um, I think it's on par with I mean, I'd still give a healthy Clippers team an edge on this.
I would as well.
I think the same for the Nuggets, but I think there's some universe where the Timberwolves could finish as a 3 seed.
I can't see it. Not with the Warriors, the Suns, the Mavs are still there. The Nuggets are there. Like you said, the Clippers are going to be better now that they're healthy. The Pelicans are there. You can't discount the Lakers. I understand
Never
that
can.
they had an up and down season. You can't discount the Lakers in the Western Conference. There's a lot of teams in that Western Conference that can be right on pace with the Timberwolves, and it can come down to a couple of games at the end of the season. So So I think that 5 is a realistic ceiling for them at max 4, but I don't think that they go any lower than 8.
What about Utah on the flip side? Obviously, Donovan Mitchell as of right now is still there. Um, with that supporting crew, I mean, you still got Jordan Clarkson. You bring in Malik Beasley, which if he plays, I mean, that's not too bad at all. Walker Kessler would get some good minutes.
Mhm.
I don't know how much, like, personally from watching a lot of Utah Jazz games, I'm a big Udoka Azubuike fan, as weird
Yeah,
as
oh
that
yeah,
is.
out of
I think
Kansas,
with
yeah.
Gobert gone, I think he's not that, like, he's your Aldi brand Rudy Gobert in a sense, where he's really just, the your old time center that can't really stretch the floor, but he's there for the interior defense.
Mm.
But I don't know. I think the West they're retooling. I think this Jazz team definitely peaks, even with Donovan Mitchell there, peaks at like a 7 seed. But
Oh, I don't think so anymore.
I
I don't think so anymore. I mean, looking at the landscape of the Western Conference, for me, the only teams guaranteed, I think, to be worse than the Utah Jazz this year are the San Antonio Spurs and the Sacramento Kings. And I say Kings almost based on track record more than overall like talent on the roster, because with De'Aaron Fox and Domantas Sabonis, that's a team that has 2 stars at their peak. Um, so I mean, really just the Spurs, and maybe if you want to throw the Kings in there, uh, and then the Thunder and the Rockets, obviously. So
they're
we're
playing.
talking like what, 4 teams?
They're a play-in tournament team, is what you're saying.
I'm talking at max a play-in tournament team, and probably like the 9 or the 10 seed at max. I think. I mean, besides those 2 rebuilding clubs on the Rockets and the Thunder, um, and then of course the 2 that I mentioned, I don't really think that there's any other team guaranteed to be worse than them. I mean, do you like who do you like better, the Trailblazers or the Jazz this year?
I was just gonna bring that up. I like the Jazz more. As much as I respect Lillard, I think on paper their roster it looks better. And also just to add, I mean, the way they play basketball in Utah is different. When you're talking about they like to share things, and that one of them is the basketball.
Yep.
And I think that obviously Donovan Mitchell is going to get his 25. But if there's one thing that we can note from this Jazz team is they were a 1 seed. Granted, obviously Rudy Gobert, we're talking about him leaving. They were a 1 seed once. No one really expected anything.
Mhm.
So might be a hot take, but I think that at this peak, at their extreme peak, with maybe some luck, when it comes to injuries and such, I think this team could definitely be ahead of the play-in. But I think a play-in is like the safe ceiling or safe floor, if that
Yeah.
makes sense. Even
Yeah,
if
I
you
gotta
want to call it a
disagree with you
floor.
there. I think I'm going Jazz hate. I think they have a better chance of missing the play-in than they do of missing the play-in because they're in the playoffs, if that makes sense. I think they have a better chance of being the 11 than they do the 6 this year.
I mean, yeah, I see it's a fine line. Like, I don't know. I'm thinking Trailblazers, Thunder, Rockets, Spurs. Honestly, depending on, like, you have to assume injuries will account for one of these teams. We don't know where. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if this Clippers team stays banged up and they just end up being a playing team. Even though I think that they're definitely the my favorite team to come out of the West, as weird as that may sound.
No, I'm with you,
Talk about a
man.
play-in team, but I don't know. Utah, they've surprised us. They've surprised us once. They could again. Who knows?
Who knows with Utah? You never know what Danny Ainge is going to do over there.
And also, speaking of things that we don't really know about, for how long we waited to upload another episode between 16 and 17, you would have suspected that Kevin Durant's been moved, Kyrie's been moved, that Brooklyn has reshaped this roster. And honestly, I like what's happened because there hasn't been any trades. I feel like Brooklyn's realizing they're not going to get the haul they want, obviously. The only real big Kevin Durant thing we've heard is, well, one, we heard Kyrie wants to stay with Brooklyn no matter what. Really random, after saying he wanted to go to the Lakers, after he wasn't going to go or to pick up his player option, then he picks it up. So he's there no matter what with Ben Simmons, supposedly. But the latest report, which isn't even that, we a week ago maybe, that Jaylen Brown, you mentioned Marcus Smart, Derek White, first round picks for KD, and I know that the problem is we both agree with it, which that might be a good thing, but I just don't think it's worth blowing up the roster for Kevin Durant.
I don't either. The Celtics are 10 deep right now in a really, really good way. I mean, they're the title favorites right now. What more do they need to do to fortify themselves as the favorites? when you're talking about a point guard position, with who's even going to start at point guard, it's probably going to be Smart with Pritchard backing him up. You look at the two because Jalen will probably slide down to the three, and it's going to be Brogdon and Derek White. Then Jalen and Gallinari at the three. Tatum is probably going to be more of like a stretch four this year, and
Do
he's
you
going to
think
have
that's a
Grant Williams
problem?
behind him. I don't think that's a problem at all. Small ball is the new, positionless basketball is the new way in the NBA. Grant Williams is behind him. He provides some muscle, a bigger presence off the bench. And then Al Horford and Rob Williams at the five. They are 10 guys strong right now.
And I think there's
And
an argument to be made that, the five guys on the bench could be the worst starter on a playoff team.
without question, without you look, what are we talking? We're talking Peyton Pritchard, Malcolm Brogdon, Gallinari, Grant Williams, and Al Horford
I mean, maybe
versus
not
the
Gallo
Jazz in a
anymore,
7-game series.
but
Versus the Jazz. What'd you say?
I said I don't know if I could. I said they'd be the worst starter on a playoff team, but I forgot. I completely blanked on the Gallinari thing. I forgot about
Gallinari's
that
there as
signing.
well. Yeah,
But
are you kidding me? That team could beat the Wizards right now.
oh,
Those five could beat the Wizards starting five right now. I think so.
that's some shame on Bradley Beal. That is some
Hey,
shame on
whatever.
Bradley Beal.
Good for him for being loyal, but I think that they can beat the Wizards starting five right now. They're a better unit. You know what I'm saying? I don't think that it makes sense for the Celtics to blow it up for Kevin Durant. And like you said, I don't think the Nets are going to get the package that they want. I mean, if the Celtics are unwilling to trade Jaylen Brown
Which
and the
they should
Heat
be.
are unwilling to trade Bam Adebayo, and the Nets don't want DeAndre Ayton, and the Suns won't give up Devin Booker, who, what else is there? He's not going to the Knicks.
It's gonna be like a Kawhi scenario. I'm telling you, they're gonna settle for something, and it won't be like the Kawhi Leonard package. It will definitely be better, but it's so funny because you're not gonna get the same like first round pick haul that you did with Utah, like in that Gobert trade,
Mm,
unless there's no other superstars in it, and they're not trying to tank.
right.
Um,
I don't think that there's a team really looking at everyone who's unwilling to give up something. Toronto's unwilling to give up Siakam. I don't think that there's a team that has the assets and the willingness to do it. Not one in the NBA.
no, I saw a tweet that compared Celtics fans by saying like, why would you rather have a Honda Civic than like a Lambo? Comparing
Yeah.
like Jalen Brown to a Honda Civic, so whack, so
As a
whack.
Honda Civic owner, I enjoy my Honda Civic.
Yeah, exactly. It gets you A to B, and I'm gonna be honest, like as an '03 Corolla driver,
Mhm.
I could go for a brand new Civic,
There's nothing wrong with it. There's nothing wrong with it. Let me tell you.
but
And the thing with Kevin Durant is, I mean, what's this, the third franchise that he's blowing up, or the second, I guess.
you're hitting
Uh,
my point right on the head. I didn't even get to say it.
The
You're nailing it.
the Celtics have fantastic chemistry right now. Why are they going to bring in Kevin Durant?
Can you even trust that after like say like for example the Celtics start like say in some scenario Kevin Durant's in Boston and they have a similar start to they did last season, like what says Kevin, like the slightest thing apparently can get Kevin Durant to want to remove or trade teams, and you
Right.
said well, like he's gone through teams, he's destroyed rosters, and he's going to run out of teams, or he's going to get to a point like this where even though you're a top 3 talent in the league, that it's not you're not that valuable as an asset if you're not loyal to the team.
What has anyone ever has anyone sat back and thought, why is Kevin Durant leaving Brooklyn? Like, why does he want to leave? What's wrong with it? He picked his ideal partner in Kyrie Irving. The team consistently makes moves around him
James
to
Harden.
position him in the best possible way as a superstar. Yeah, they got swept in the first round of the playoffs, and yeah, they lost in the second round of the playoffs last year. But they've been hurt, and that you can make excuses for them. Who's to say that Brooklyn isn't a title favorite with if they just run it back right now?
I mean, Kyrie played what, 39 games?
Yeah, he's going to play a whole season. You think you get Ben Simmons back. Royce O'Neal just came in from Utah. Joe Harris is back. Seth Curry's back. Nick Claxton's back. Why don't they just run it back?
It's a comp, and like the roster, it does drop off, but to have, the big like KD, Kyrie, you can, if in a scenario where KD stays and you got a combined what do you even want to say, 50 games with them on the court?
Yeah,
Is that not at least 35 wins?
I was just going to say 35 wins. Yep,
Like
just about.
it's absurd. We're agreeing too much. It's gonna make for boring content. No, I'm kidding.
It's just craziness how Kevin Durant wants out of a situation that he set himself up for an ideal situation for.
It's
I
I
don't even
mean,
know what that is.
it's almost like the Paul George's scenario was again different, but KD, I just don't think will be satisfied. I think is it again, I think we mentioned this before, but do you think he's hit his peak, like his career peak in a sense where like
Oh,
I don't see another MVP. I know like he can get a ring depending on what he really wants to do, but you can't really like I've been telling Bono this as well that I've been wanting to do our way too early like standings predictions because they're always so funny to listen back to.
mhm.
But you can't do that right now with the Kevin Durant situation, with the whole Brooklyn Nets situation.
No.
It's tough.
But I do think that Kevin Durant's hit his peak in the terms of I don't think he's going to get any better. With that being said, I think he's still at it. Like he's a top 5 player in the NBA undeniably. So if you're looking at it in a vacuum and you're saying, would you trade Jaylen Brown for Kevin Durant if I want to win a championship next year? I guess the answer is yes. The only thing is, it's not just Jaylen Brown. It's Jaylen Brown and Marcus Smart and Derek White and X first round picks. And we're not just looking at next year, we're looking at the next 10 years. So for that reason, I say no. I think the answer is that you don't trade him if you're the Celtics. And I would say no about Bam Adebayo and Tyler Hero in multiple firsts if I was the Heat. And I would say no about Pascal Siakam and Fred VanVleet in multiple firsts if I was the Raptors, and so on and down the line.
Is there any team that you would say that if you were the GM, you would take that shot? Like if you had the team that comes to mind is a team you mentioned before and a team that I will mention later because I didn't even talk about the fact that we're going to do we're going to be talking about our awards and our winners and our full little bit more deep dive into our winners and losers from the draft. But I honestly think that the more and more that this sits, the more and more that the Pelicans have a better offer.
Mm-hmm.
Like Brandon Ingram
Brandon Ingram.
and whatever first round picks you can get, give them a couple guys off the bench. Like
Yep.
you want to make a powerhouse over in New Orleans, if you can make the cap work, that's CJ McCollum, Zion, KD.
Yep.
That's
That would
crazy.
that would absolutely do it. I agree. There are teams out there that I look at that I would say I would do it if I was them. If I was Portland, I would absolutely do it. I would give
That's a
up.
scenario though where I think Brooklyn wouldn't.
I don't think that Portland has the assets. That's the thing. I don't think that if you offered him, Grant and Simmons or Simons or however you say it, and X amount of first, I don't think Brooklyn does it. But it's intriguing. I mean, imagine Damian Lillard and Kevin Durant. If I'm the Sacramento Kings, why not? You know what I'm saying? Like, make a splash, give up all of your young talent and all of your first in the future. You've been irrelevant for the last 20 years. Do it. So if I was a GM of a certain amount of teams, yes, but it doesn't logistically fit with what the Nets want and the actual scope of the NBA. So,
Now
forced trades are off.
to give you one question. So do you think with the season, slowly approaching, do you think Kevin Durant will be on a new team by the end of August? Do you think it'll be 2 weeks? Do you think he's even leaving? Do you think they'll
I
find
think
anything?
Kevin Durant plays game 1 of the 2022-23 NBA season on the Brooklyn Nets.
And there's your Twitter clip, folks. There it is.
I strongly believe that.
Let's take a quick cut and then we'll talk about a little draft recap and what I'm looking forward to, the awards predictions. Winners and losers of the draft. Now, I know last time on the pod, I mentioned the Pistons and I mentioned how I didn't hate what the Knicks did. So I'm leaving those two out of my conversation, but I wrote down a couple teams. I don't know how many I'll really get to because some of them are pretty minor, but of the two, depending on this answer is how we're going to start this. Who do you think was the overall biggest winner or biggest loser? Like which do you think was worse in a sense, or better or worse?
Okay.
I don't know if I phrased that right, but
I got you.
biggest winner or biggest loser? Who had the biggest night?
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought that you were gonna give me a couple teams to choose from. I
I'm
thought
just
you were
having
saying you wrote a couple. Okay. So you're just asking me who had the biggest night, who had not the biggest night.
Yeah. What team had just to start us off? What team had the biggest night overall? Whether it was the biggest loser or biggest winner? What team just walked away the biggest?
I was on the Cavs. I might have mentioned this in the last time. I think that they played it really safe at 14 with Abaji. I don't, that's a really talented roster. That's not like one like role player away from a championship. So I think that Abaji would have fit a different type of team rather than the Cavs. I would have liked them to take a swing at a higher upside guy that would have, fit with their timeline of being, they're not a championship contender next year. They're still a year away and maybe a big free agent acquisition away or a large draft pick that pans out away. I don't think that Abaji's like a Tyler Hero that gets drafted in the late lottery and, was a 20-point per game scorer off the bench. I think that he's more of a safe pick in terms of he was a senior. You kind of know what he is already. He's not really going to develop into much more. So I think that the Cavs could have done better at that pick. So I will take them as one of the bigger losers of draft night.
I mean, the Cavs, I think they also had 3 second-round picks, which I know, like, yeah, the second-round pick's a second-round pick. They'll give you some minutes off the bench and, they could blossom into something. But this Cavs roster is going to turn into, I almost want to call it like the Bulls roster before DeMar in a sense. You had a lot of talent. You had a lot of younger players. And it's just about who's going to get fed first. And I don't know. I just don't really – I think that just the fact that you take 3 seconds, I don't know in any scenario where it's really worth having 3 second-round picks in an NBA draft.
Yeah, no, literally, they're not all going to make the roster.
Exactly, and that's why it might be seen as a crazy hot take because while I did think they nailed the 8th overall pick, I wasn't happy with how the Pelicans just haven't made a move. That's why I'm kind of calling them a loser because Dyson Daniels, obviously, you grab defense, which is what you need from that, from that draft spot when you're in a win now scenario. But again, I think you had 3 picks in this draft. You have there have been stars on the move. Again, I'm going to keep throwing out Kevin Durant here, but I think this Pelicans team, in a rebuild, I'm no NBA GM, but I think once you have your core, then there's always parts of the team, not everybody is drafted. You gotta go out, spend some dough, make some moves. And this Pelicans team, I feel like has been very passive with that. Maybe you attribute that to their question mark of Zion Williamson, but I like the Daniels pick at 8. But with the 8th overall pick, with 2 seconds, and you already have, Herb. How much different is Dyson Daniels from Herb Jones?
I guess we don't know because Daniels hasn't shown us much, but the projection, yeah, it makes sense. Daniels has a long way to go filling out though.
I see that like I said, I like Daniels. Didn't like what their decision was on draft night. But that's really, that's all I really had on the Pelicans, to be honest. To go to another, or my other 2, I kind of tied them. I wrote down 3 for each, but I think this is a pretty good tie. I just didn't like what the Wizards and Trailblazers did. I think you both, Wizards taking Johnny Davis at 10. You mentioned, I think you summed it up best, so that's why I won't spend long talking about it. When you mentioned last episode that this team has continuously lived in that awkward point in the NBA where you're really not going to get much better. You gained some Taco Bell commercials, but there was I thought there was more upside still left. I thought AJ Griffin would have looked nice in a Wizards jersey.
I was just going to mention the Hawks as a winner.
But I don't know that. And then I just think the Trailblazers, I respect how they draft where they're going for upside, but it hasn't panned out. A while back, I was saying that I loved the Nazir Little pick because he fell so far.
Oh my God.
Again, I think that this team, they haven't hit on a draft pick in a while. I like Sharp, but I don't think he's really going to fit well with Portland. So that's why I kind of categorize if I had to describe the Wizards and Trailblazers, I think the best way to sum it up is teams trying to win and moving backwards in the draft.
Interesting. I like Sharp more than I like Davis. Davis was a good college player, real good college player, but the Wizards all the time draft really good college players that just aren't really good NBA players. You saw it last year with Cody Kispert. You see it with Rui Hachimura. No offense to any of these guys. Hachimura is a good NBA player, but he's not someone that moves the needle. And he's like their third option. You can't have Rui Hachimura be your third option. That's why they're stuck in the middle every single year.
So hasn't been great.
No, so I feel like just like you said, the Wizards are trying to get better, and they're just treading water. In terms of Sharp, I didn't mind the pick at 7. If you're the Blazers, I feel like I would have hated their move more if they went with someone like Davis that just would have helped them tread water. They took a swing on Sharp. He hasn't even played a college game. We're really not exactly sure what he's going to become, but the potential is there. we're not draft scouts, but we read about it. And if he does turn into that, then he extends your window with Damian Lillard. And that I think was what the Blazers were going for. So I'm not necessarily putting them in the hate. I won't put them in the love either, but I'm not going to put them in the hate. I was going to talk a little bit about the Hawks and AJ Griffin. I think that he's one of the biggest upside picks, and they got him at 16, which is great value for that position. I think he's going to fit well in the perimeter with that team. So I categorize the Hawks as a winner as well.
I mean, we've seen it before. Late teens, or no, John Collins was definitely a little later, but this Hawks team, they've hit on draft picks before. I think the Hawks offseason has been, I mean, they're the questions. I mean, you're big on the backcourt. I like it too. I think DeJounte's time will go down a little bit, but I think the Hawks, they've just been trending upwards this whole offseason. Whereas ironically, just to throw it out there, I think that I think two teams were in prime spots where they ended the season where you would expect a lot of moves to be made. I put those two as the Hawks and the Hornets. And I feel like all the Hornets have done is gone backwards, where they really haven't made many moves. But to go on, since we're talking about winners, let's get more into the positives. I think the Rockets got the number 1 overall pick at 3. I think I also really enjoyed their other later picks. Mm-hmm. And while both these teams really only ended up taking one player, I loved Nikola Jovic at 27 for the Heat. I think that's when you're talking about another guy that's high upside that can, stretch the floor at a little bit of a, standing at 6'10". And again, I think I'm the only guy out there that's defending the Kings at this point, but they're making it pretty obvious that they just want to make the playoffs. De'Aaron Fox continues to just live on a roster that hasn't had much, but now all of a sudden, Malik Monk, you're getting, Domantas Sabonis coming back, obviously, midseason acquisition, and you're drafting a NBA ready, in a sense, Keegan Murray, power forward.
Keegan Murray had a really good summer league.
And I mean, take summer league as it is, because Trae Young was both really hot and really cold. But I think that I just want to see this Kings team win, and they're clearly they're making the moves to show that they're trying to battle, which I think is dope. So I mean, 4th overall pick. Yeah, Jaden Ivey would have been cool, but to be honest, if they took Ivey, I mean, the reaction I had with Davion Mitchell last year summed it up pretty well, where I was like, this team does not need more guards. And at the 4th overall pick, I don't know if you go positional need over like best overall, but gotta respect the Kings for putting their balls out. I mean, simple as that. They're trying.
Yeah, I mean, for this year, Keegan Murray is going to be better than Jaden Ivey. I don't think that's a really hot take. I think that everybody kind of knows that. Next year is a different story, and the 10 years down the line, is a different story. But for now, like you said, they want to make the playoffs. Keegan Murray is the guy that's going to get you there over Jaden Ivey this year, I think.
You like Jovic to Miami?
I like Jovic to Miami. Anyone with the name that resembles Nikola Jokic, I love automatically. I don't care about his game. I don't care about his draft stock. I don't care about anything. Miami's a team of smart drafting. I mean, we've seen that over the years. Tyler Hero, Bam Adebayo. We've seen it consistently.
Duncan Robinson.
Duncan Robinson. I was just going to say they consistently hit on undrafted free agents. So I trust a lot of what Miami does, and that includes that move.
What do you have any other winners?
I mean, I summed it up a little bit last time. I love what Detroit did. I think I talked about them a lot last time. I like what the Thunder did just because they're getting their guys. I'm not massively high on Dang, probably because I haven't seen him play that much. But, I like how they didn't just sit on their existing picks. They traded up to go get the guy that they wanted. That's what you have to do when you have so many assets. You have to actually use them instead of just sitting back on them. From there, I mean, just looking down there's a ton of trades down by the bottom. I like what the Warriors did, kind of sneaky, with Patrick Baldwin Jr. I mean, this was a guy last year at this time that was projected to go top 10. He went to a mid-major school to play for his father. Didn't work out. He didn't play well against lighter competition, but still declared for the draft, still went in the first round. He's a guy that if he can develop under an NBA coaching staff, he could be a steal for them at 29. I mean, we've heard that before, Jordan Poole. So yeah, those are my winners.
So yeah, I mean, I had something quick that I was going to say about Patrick Baldwin. I mean, the Warriors, it's a low risk, high reward, like you said. They've got all the draft stock in the world. One I think that I definitely want to just throw out there. I also liked what the Mavericks did, getting Hardy. Just really I think he fits what they really need. And like I said, who knows? I mean, you add Christian Wood, Hardy's going to be off the bench. It could be solid. But I think it's time to send it to awards.
Yeah, let's get some predictions going.
Could be completely wrong. A little bit of a timer here. Shout out Zoom for now setting a time limit. I'm not paying for Zoom Pro.
No, absolutely
But
not.
let's not waste any more time. Rob, fire away. Who's your MVP?
My MVP is Giannis Antetokounmpo. I
Safe
think it's the
pick.
safest pick for MVP. I think it's the safest pick for MVP. He's a two-time MVP. He's always in the race. He is the most dominant player in the NBA right now. In my opinion, the best player in the NBA right now on a contending team that can finish at the top of their conference, a defensive player of the year contender every single year. Giannis, I think, is going to start getting LeBron treatment, which is we just have to give it to somebody else. But realistically, it could be this guy every year. So I'm just gonna go with the favorite, and that is Giannis.
Like I said, we're gonna rapid fire these. So I mean, you can't disrespect the Giannis pick, which I think similar. I mean, not the most similar mindset, but I'm gonna keep saying this. I said it last offseason. I'm gonna just speak it until it happens. Like Luka's gonna get an MVP at some point, and the Mavs are continuing to trend up. I think this is finally could be like with the MVP with the voter fatigue with Giannis. I think that or if Luka keeps doing what he's doing, that at some point he's gonna get rewarded for it.
I agree.
All right. What's next for you? Depoy, rookie of the year.
We can go Depoy just because Depoy for me is also Giannis Antetokounmpo. I thought that would bring a little reaction from you.
Taking it all.
I mean, like I just said, the best player in the NBA because he's the all-around player. Multi-time defensive player of the year, I believe, or at least one. A great rim protector, can guard the perimeter. Yep, two-time, can guard the perimeter, can guard the rim. I was gonna say Rudy Gobert just because I think new team, new atmosphere, new motivation for Rudy. I also like how Karl Anthony Towns is going to be out on the perimeter on that team. So I was going to say Rudy Gobert, but give me the double for Giannis. I think if he wins the Depoy, then he's definitely going to win the MVP. So I kind of play the odds there a little bit, and I'm going with Giannis.
See, I don't know now if like what our approach was because you're so far the Giannis picks are the safe picks. I'm kind of just going like it's also a safer pick, but one that I think is not like the favorite, and it's got to be Bam Adebayo. He's in the conversation every year.
Yes.
He's shown up big time. He shows that he can guard around the perimeter. I will never forget the Tatum block. I know that's so far away to talk about the future.
Still hurts.
But Bam has not only made it vocal that he thinks he's the Depoy. I think this is the year he finally, puts it, even though he's already been doing it, but I think this is the year he finally surpasses Gobert. I think that this year also, Marcus Smart definitely like he got the reward, but I think 2 weeks earlier he wasn't even really in consideration, or 2 months even. When you're talking about it was really Gobert and then Bam was thrown out there.
Right.
So I think Bam. Send it over. Rookie of the year.
Rookie of the year, I have Paulo Banchero. I know that you're gonna pick Jabari Smith, or I think that you're gonna pick Jabari Smith. So I went the other way. Actually, not necessarily the other way, because I could have gone with Chet, I think, pretty easily, or even Keegan. But I'm gonna go with Paulo because I think the opportunity for him to score is going to be higher than the other two, if that kind of makes sense. I think that Chet in year one is going to impose more on the defensive side of the ball. I think that Jabari has Jalen Green on the other side, even Kevin Porter Jr. a little bit, that's going to want to score the ball. I think that Paulo is going to be the guy in Orlando right away. The top scoring option in Orlando right away. So I think that he is going to win the Rookie of the Year.
I love Paulo, but the only thing that scares me is Orlando.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like
it. Makes sense.
Mean, it worked with Dwight Howard.
Mm-hmm.
It did.
It did.
And I think it's funny how you said Jabari, because I'm on that Chet Holmgren train.
Oh,
I'm on that Chet train. I mean, I love this guy in college. I think I think it's not reasonable, or it's pretty reasonable for him to have a pretty similar season to Evan Mobley this last year.
Yeah.
I think his ceiling, I don't think there is one. I think Shea by his size could be pretty nice. Only problem is I just don't, like I said, the Thunder aren't going to be good, but his stats will be.
Yeah.
So I was stuck between Jabari and Paulo, or Jabari and Chet. Sorry. Well, didn't mean to rhyme there either. But I think you'll find out later why I did not choose Jabari for my Rookie of the Year.
All right, can't wait.
Fire it
Well,
away.
for my sixth man, as we continue to fire these off, here's my first real hot take. Give me Cam Johnson of the Phoenix
Ooh,
Suns. I
ooh.
think that he is a special kind of player that's going to get real opportunity. I mean, he got real opportunity last year. I think that only expands this year, especially because the Suns have had some fantastic health over the last couple of years. If that changes at all, Cam Johnson's going to be asked to step up even more. I think that this guy is a legitimate like Tyler Hero candidate, where he could average north of 20 points a game for a number one seed, like he almost has at this point. Give me Cam Johnson as a six man.
3 minutes on the clock. A lot of pressure here.
We're
I
getting
like
there.
Cam. Well, I didn't like him coming out of the draft because I just didn't like how old he was, and at
Went
that
early.
point, I didn't think Phoenix wasn't a win now scenario.
Mhm.
Flip side, you're going up with someone trending upwards. I'm going with the newcomer who we mentioned before. I think that it's Malcolm Brogdon's to lose.
Nice.
In Boston, because I saw a report early that Brad wants him to come off as the sixth man.
Mhm.
I think he's going to be that primary scorer, obviously. My only issue is he's just got to stay healthy to win the award, which if he does, so it'll be pretty good.
Mhm.
But this brings us down to two. Most improved coach of the year. It's got to be most improved first.
Most improved first. I'm between a couple on this one, so I'd love if you started this one.
Oh, don't mind if I do, because my rookie of the year prediction last year that fell on my face, and I still have hope. And the reason I didn't pick Jabari is it's got to be Jalen Green. Jalen Green was
That's
hot
one of
to
mine
end the
too.
season, 17 points per game. Nobody looked at him. And I see a step up, much not on the playmaking side, but I do see a step up that like he can turn into almost like a hybrid between Colin Sexton and Darius Garland in a sense.
Mhm.
I think 20 points per game is the floor for next season.
The floor.
I think it's the floor. I think he can average. I think on that Houston team, I think 22 does not seem like crazy to say after averaging 17.
Okay, Jalen Green was the one that I was leaning towards. Because you go Jalen Green, I'm gonna go with my weird one, and it's really weird because this guy is like a veteran, but I could really see it from Buddy Hield next year. I am
Okay.
buying all of the Buddy Hield on Indiana stock that I possibly can. I really think that this guy has the potential to be like a 24 point per game scorer. He is an elite
Whoa.
3 point shooter. He's an elite 3 point shooter that has been on pretty bad teams throughout his career. We have less than a minute, so I'm going to wrap this up real quick. Um, Give me Buddy Hield. I'll explain it. I'll explain a later episode.
All right. Well,
And my coach of the year, real quick. I've been on the Pelicans this whole time, so give me Willie Green.
give me JP Bickerstaff from the Cavs.
Wow.
I think Cavs will keep going up. They paid this man. But we got less than a minute. We're gonna let this Zoom end and we're gonna send it to the start bench cut and the outro. Zoom cut us out, but honestly, I like that fight. We had 8 minutes. I always say it's gonna be a quick episode, and then you catch me talking, literally stalling at literally right now. Um, but for everyone at home, Rob before the show told me I got a crazy start bench cut. I said, don't tell me until now. We're here. I mean, you can still go first if you want. I mean, you're the one that controlled it. You want me to take it?
After you, you can go first, and I'll give it to you after. Uh, so my start bench cut. I want you to answer this for the following season. Um, I want you to include health in your answer because that's why it's so crazy. Is because one of these guys, availability is his biggest unavailability. He's consistently unavailable. If he was available for the full season, if you think he can be, he would likely be number one. But let me get right to it. That guy is Michael Porter Jr.
Oh, I
So
love
Michael
me
Porter
some
Jr. is number
MPJ.
one, a great talent, a max guy that cannot stay healthy. Number two and three were traded for each other, and they are Norman Powell and Gary Trent Jr.
Oh my word. I
Start
love
bench
this.
cut, those three, all close to 20 points per game when on the floor. All really good, kind of slept on players in the NBA. Give me a
Jeez.
start bench cut there.
Um, I see when you say health, that's when Michael Porter Jr. really gets thrown. Like that's when his name really like the value goes down.
It's weird, but he also has the most potential out of the three. I don't think that's in question.
I honestly think like this might be crazy.
Mhm.
Start Gary Trent. I love that guy. I think also if we're talking between the two teams, Norman Powell's got, he's most likely going to come. I don't think he'll be coming off the bench, but he's going to have some guys around him that are going to be taking those shots. I think the safest, I've talked about ceilings and floors so much this episode. Safest ceiling, if that makes sense, is Gary Trent Jr. And then after that, I'm going to go Norman Powell because I think Kawhi, Paul George, they're not going to play as many games as like many people suspect, even if they're fully healthy. You want to keep these guys healthy. You want to rest them as much as you can. Norman Powell's that guy that really no one talks about, as you say, that can go out there and give you like 17, 18 a night. And that's why if I'm a playoff team and those two guys have shown it already and they've done it while healthy, I think the safe thing to do is cut Michael Porter Jr.
Interesting. All right. I'm going to agree and disagree with you a little bit. I'm going to start Gary. I think he's a fantastic player. Just like you said, I love that guy. I love that guy too. I mean, 18.3 points per game last year. That was a career high. He's gone up in points per game each of the last 3 seasons. I see that trend continuing on a Toronto team that really needs him to continue it. I love Gary Trent Jr. I think that was a fantastic trade for Toronto.
So Michael Porter Jr.
I'm going to bench Michael Porter Jr. because I feel like I can take that risk on the bench of having a Michael Porter Jr. who very well could be the best player in 3. Like I said, I think that he easily has the most potential. I think he's a potential 25 point per game scorer in the NBA. He's a born scorer. That was coming out of high school. That was in college until he broke his back or whatever happened with his back. And that's what we saw in his second season in the NBA when he averaged 19. So I think that Michael Porter Jr., with all the potential that he brings, has to at least go on but he has to make the roster, which means that unfortunately I cut Norman Powell as a casualty.
How much does this change, if it changes at all, if instead of Michael Porter Jr., it's Jamal Murray?
Oh, that changes completely. I start Jamal Murray and I bench Gary Trent Jr. and I cut Norman Powell.
If you're ever bored and you just want to watch a good time, just look up Jamal Murray in the bubble.
Oh my God. I will never forget that one highlight, the spinning 360 layup. I will never forget that.
Listen, for how much smack talk the Mickey Mouse ring gets, the bubble had some great playoff series. It had TJ Warren peak, and we saw the birth of the Phoenix Suns success.
We did. We absolutely did. No.
But what a banger of an episode. We need to do more Rob and Nico pods. Simple.
That was fantastic. A lot of interesting things from this episode that I will watch this back and go, wow.
Yeah, no, this was dope. This was dope. Sorry, Bono. You got to make it next time. But I think that is going to do it for Bricks and Buckets this episode. Make sure to follow the socials. Twitter's at Bricks Buckets. Instagram is at Bricks and Buckets. YouTube is, I believe, Bricks Buckets. I should know it by. It's either Bricks Buckets, Bricks and Buckets. I got to make them all the same at this point. My Twitter, Nico _Fasella. Rob, shout yourself out, of course.
My Twitter, Robert _ 11.
And currently with the amount of news, this is a pretty dry time for the NBA. We're waiting on a lot of free agents, waiting on Kevin Durant. Probably won't see another upload until maybe around August 18th, probably going every other week now up until the season starts, but we still got a lot to talk about. We might, we got to throw in a redraft just for fun. Bricks and Buckets Classic. And of course, the standing predictions. We got to recap the ones from last time too. Bono, Brody, myself, there were a lot of flops. I had Lakers Nets finals.
That's all right. Everybody did.
But yeah, that's going to do it for this episode. Of course, I'm Nico.
And I'm Rob.
And we will see you not next week, but the week after.
Can't wait.